Hey everyone, this is Lynn Bartown, and you are listening to the Apex Hour on KSUU Thunder 91.1. In this show, you get more personal time with the guests who visit Southern Utah University from all over, learning more about their stories and opinions beyond their presentations on stage. We will also give you some new music to listen to and hope to turn you on to some new sounds and new genres. You can find us here every Thursday at 3 p.m. or on the web at scu.edu/apex. But for now, welcome to this week's show here on Thunder 91.1.
Awesome. Welcome in, everyone, to another Apex Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. I am so excited to talk about today's event, as today's entire theme has been science. We got to see so many things today right in front of our eyes, from live experiments to live animals. But before we dive into that, and I get to introduce you to my phenomenal guests, as you've probably noticed, things are a little bit different in the studio today. Our fearless leader and the producer of Apex Events, Lynn Vartan, has been called away for another one of her passions, which is working with SUU's drumline and all of our phenomenal percussion majors. Because of this, I have the phenomenal privilege and opportunity of filling in. My name's Amelia Nauman, and I am a student right here at Southern Utah University. I've been working for Apex for this entire semester, and it has been such a whirlwind. But I have to say, today's event definitely takes the cake for most energetic. Now that I've introduced myself, I am so excited to introduce you to my guests, and we are going to start with Jason. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. All right, Jason, can you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you do for SUU?
Sure. I am a professor in the Geosciences department here at SUU. I've been here since 2014. Teach a number of classes in geosciences, including natural hazards and disasters, one of my favorites, and a number of upper-level courses that involve mineral chemistry, rock chemistry, and a bunch of field work, because we're in southern Utah, and you have to be outside teaching geology in southern Utah.
Oh, for sure. If I was a geology major, southern Utah is the place that I would want to be. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I am so excited to dive in a little bit more about that. But next up, Bertram, will you please introduce yourself?
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Bertram Tsawatawa. I come from northeastern Arizona, a Hopi tribal member, and I am currently one of the tour guides out there. My company name's Ancient Pathways Tours. I also guide into the southwestern ancestral sites. Maybe a list of my repertoire of titles now I can put in there: consulting, because that's what I've been doing with the Utah Humanities, the program here, Humanities in the Wild. So it's been very interesting, and seeing other parts of Utah, the state of Utah.
Oh, that's so great. And I know you have a massive resume, and I am so excited to dive more into your career and what you've done. But before that, our final guest, Willie, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back at SUU. My name is Willie Palomo. I am currently the program manager for the Center for the Book at Utah Humanities, which just means I run around the entire state doing book events, bringing storytellers like Bertram around, events with authors, and it's just a joy.
Oh, and that is such a phenomenal program. And I'm so grateful that you're able to come back to SUU after all of your work with CDI, and you were able to bring Bertram with you. Awesome. Now that we've gotten through all of our phenomenal guests, I would love to dive into a little bit more about what you do, Bertram. Bertram had the opportunity to give just a really brief intro about some of the phenomenal things he's been involved with during our Apex event. And so I just wanted to ask you a little bit more about your background and what it was like growing up in Arizona, and kind of your upbringing and how you have come to be where you are today, especially with herbalism.
Okay, a lot of my upbringing was with my grandparents, and specifically with my grandmother. She probably was inadvertently already exposing me and teaching me about the plants, which were either medicinal or edible. And living in northeastern Arizona on the Hopi Reservation, I come from the village of Older Ivy. It's a very small village, but we do have collectively 12 villages within the area that's known as the Colorado Plateau in the Black Mesa region. And so coming from there, actually, you know, a Walmart or none of the other grocery stores are not nearby. You have to traverse either an hour's drive, say south of the villages will be Winslow, Arizona, or west of the Hopi Reservation, an hour and a half's drive to Flagstaff would be another area where there's more multiple shops and other areas, or a mall that's located there. So definitely there's traversing to go away from the villages just to, you know, go for grocery shoppings or errands. Myself, I'm a self-taught artisan. I did a lot of the two-dimensional art. Crayola crayons were my first medium in second grade, but progressing up from there, got into mixed media, colored pencil, pen and ink. Then after graduating from high school, I attended the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and did study more of the finer points of painting, which was acrylic, oil painting, which I really like to do a lot of the layering of the complementary colors on there. Got introduced to monotypes, lithography, embossments during that particular time, but I actually majored in museum studies at that time. So I've seen a lot of museum collections there in Santa Fe, New Mexico, seen of the original carvings of the dolls of our Hopi people, and I just got inspired from those traditional forms. So I just, you know, started carving that just to show, you know, my fellow tribal members that these were the dolls originally, how they looked prior to the realistic renditions that the modern contemporary counterparts, you know, concentrate on the carving and the anatomy of the realistic body proportions. So I jokingly refer to those modern contemporary counterparts as the proto-Michelangelo action figures. You know, you learn that through art appreciation and classes as well, you know, that you take, you know, as a core classes in art appreciation and art history. And so after attending from IAIA in Santa Fe, New Mexico, then went back to the reservation, and there wasn't really much job opportunities, employment, even though a lot of the tribal members are artisans themselves as craftspeople, as potters, textile weavers, doll carvers, jewelry makers.
Oh, yeah.
And so just a different avenue. I chose maybe to be a guide, educate people and of their visit out to the Hopi villages, educate them about us as Hopi people.
For sure. And when you take people on your tours and you, like, what are some of the main points that you hit to educate them about the Hopi people?
One of the main ones is, you know, like in the misconception or misinformation of the term Anasazi that's in archaeology, that actually now it's being replaced with ancestral Puebloan. So the Hopi people and the Pueblo cultures that reside in New Mexico, we are the modern descendants of our ancestors that constructed, say, the Chaco Canyon or Mesa Verde, Hoven Weep, you know, just these general ancestral sites that are found through the southwestern states. And so that's just one that I educate, you know, because, you know, the term of Anasazi came from our neighbors' language of the Navajo, of the Dene, that they told the archaeologists and scholars, you know, it meant ancient ones. But, you know, now, you know, all the truths are coming out. So, yes, in archaeology, it's being switched of that term now to ancestral Puebloan. And then just generally, we do have a lot of these ancestral ties or histories, you know, that, again, tie in with geology. And so, like, say in the description that we give in the First World, you know, the cleansing or purification that occurred was all the volcanism that was occurring and happening. And so that's why you see all this evidence on the land of lava beds, dormant or active, volcanoes or strato, you know, volcanoes as mountains. So, you know, my travels coming here to Cedar City on the tops of the mountains, you know, yes, I always get fascinated to see the lava beds before descending down here into Cedar City.
Yeah. Speaking of lava beds, I know Jason right here in the studio with us, that's something that he's really interested in. So Jason, I would love any of your insights kind of about the local lava beds and some of the things that you've been able to study in our area, kind of like we've been talking about.
Sure. What a great connection. That's a lot of the same stuff that brought me to Southern Utah. That's the reason I got into geology to begin with, was studying volcanoes really from all over the world. But one of the reasons that I was very excited to join the faculty at SUU was exactly what Bertram was just describing.
Yeah.
So a lot of what we see around here in Cedar City is a volcanic rock called basalt. Those are made of the typical lava flows that you would see, like, for instance, in Hawaii.
Ooh,
So
okay.
the traditional lava flows that I think a lot of people would picture, that's what built a lot of the plateaus and is what is capping a lot of the plateaus in this area. And at the time that they were active, which was spanning maybe 1,000 years ago to a little over 100,000 years ago,
Wow.
it would have been a much different landscape, and it would have been a lot less comprised of the vegetation and a lot more covered by the black rock that we see all over the place.
Oh, wow. That is amazing. And is that something you get to go out with your students and like study actively in the field, or is that not something you really get to see that often?
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's one of the advantages that we have here at SUU, that we do get to study those rocks among a lot of the other diverse geologic settings in southern Utah. But yeah, we get to talk about that in class. We get to show pictures and videos like any other university, but then we get to go see them in person. And the students really enjoy seeing the rocks up close and personal, but you learn a lot more from being out there, hands-on experiences.
Oh, for sure. Field work is definitely the best thing to do no matter what area you're in. Well, I think that is the perfect intro into our first song. The Apex Hour features, of course, so many phenomenal points about education, but we also hope to turn you on to some new sounds. And just because we're talking about rocks, I would like to play for you the rock song. We'll get that going. This is KSUU Thunder 91.1.
If I were not a rock, I'd be just a grain of sand, brushed aside by footsteps as they redistribute land. If I were not a rock, I'd be unable to stand. I'd be blown away like dust in Aristotle's hand. But as it is, the wind and rain erode my surface slowly, but I cannot be molded like the clay that lies below me. And I'll stand for centuries while oceans wash away, immune to all decay. If I were not a mountain, I'd be just a little hill, embarrassed by the small size of the ditches I would fill. If I were not a mountain, I'd be unable to stand still. I'd be bulldozed in an instant while I watched my soil spill. But as it is, the highway workers must build their roads around me, 'cause I cannot be leveled like foothills that surround me. And I'll stand for centuries while oceans wash away, immune to all decay. Rock on now.
That was The Rock Song by the Dan Sheehan Conspiracy. And that is the perfect song to play because today has been all about science. Everything from geology to chemistry to physics and more. You're listening to the Apex Hour, and we will continue to talk to our guests more about their experiences here at SUU and what they are currently doing. So awesome. Next, I would like to get into more of what Willie and Bertram, more of your relationship and kind of how you found each other and why we have the utmost privilege of having Bertram on our campus today. So, Willie, what do you do for the state of Utah? We would love to hear a little bit more and get some details for our listeners.
Yeah, so I'm the program manager for the Center for the Book at Utah Humanities. Basically, all that means is I run around all over the state in Utah, from rural areas to more urban areas, places like Cedar City. And then we do events that encompass storytelling, books, and authors, which can get pretty flexible. So like in August, I did a cookbook event where we brought a Dene woman who knew how to make blue corn mush, and we brought a tamal lady, and we had cookbooks that broke down the historical kind of connection between Native and Latinx communities through corn. And we also do the traditional, like, hey, I got a book, I'm going to read from it, and you can ask me some questions. So that's kind of what I've been up to in general. And the way I got connected with Bertram is we started doing this program called Humanities in the Wild, which is super fun. Essentially what it is you go on a hike with two very smart people who are going to be Bertram and Jason this afternoon. And they tell you about allowing you to see deeper in what you're going to, right? Because if I look at a rock, I go, it's the color gray and it's a rock. But when Jason looks at a rock, it gets a little bit more intense than that, right? Like you get to see beyond just the surface. And that's what the idea is we're always bringing a scientist and a humanist so that they can explain the history of the area, some of the like cool things that they can tell us about like water or like the vegetation or things like that. You know, an average person like me going into a hike, like I just see like, stick, like, I don't know what's going on. So that's the joy of this event, is we get to go on some hikes and we get to learn about the history of where we come from and some of the science behind it. And today we're going to go to Rainbow Canyon to see some of the petroglyphs. It's a moderate hike, but it's only 1 mile, and we're going to have walkie-talkies if folks want to move at their own pace. But we're going to go up and see the petroglyphs and then see what Bertram can tell us about them. We visited them earlier this year, I want to say around June, and it was a beautiful experience. Just because there's a lot of history around these. And when I lived in Cedar City, I used to work as a coordinator for the Center for Diversity and Inclusion. Yes. I didn't even know that there was something that like marvelous and magical so close by. And that's something that like we're trying to draw attention to, you know. We're in one of the most beautiful states, like beautiful places in the world. Like people travel from far and wide to get to see us, what we have like outside of our kitchen window, right? So that's something we definitely want people engaging with and, you know, talking about the importance and the value of the environment in all its different ways, you know, whether that's aesthetic, whether that's ecological, whether that's financial, economic. There's a lot of ways that the environment is valuable to us as human beings, and it's about connecting to all those different ways. This is random and a tidbit, but like
That's great.
One of the events we did with Humanities in the Wild involved the scientists over in Logan, Utah, who talked about tuning rivers by moving the rocks in them, because you can like hear the sounds and stuff like that. And there's like little magical things like that are just like, wow, humans have figured that out. And I'm so glad this guy spends so much time with that river that like he can make it play him music, essentially. So that's what we're up to. And we're super excited for tonight to go check out the petroglyphs, and it's going to be a good time.
Oh, I am also super, super excited for that event. Well, that is absolutely beautiful. I have never heard of tuning rivers.
Right?
So what a phenomenal opportunity you get to really like bring this knowledge to the community. Do you have any other like experiences that you would like to share with specific stories or guests, or more about how you got connected with Bertram?
Yeah, with Bertram. Oh, yes, that's what I was supposed to be addressing.
We do it all.
Archaeologist Don Montoya, who works for the board over at Utah Humanities, and he was able to get us connected to Bertram because, of course, he's in Castle Valley, really close to Moab. And, of course, there's so many, like, beautiful things specifically in Moab, right? Like, huge tourist destination. And I am not familiar with some of the context when it comes to like if you're seeing some rock imagery, like what exactly it would mean. And I knew Don had that knowledge, so I reached out to him and he said, I can do it from a scientific perspective as an archaeologist, but we're going to bring in Bertram to be able to give the cultural side. So we visited a couple of places like Birthing Rock, Poison Spider, and we got to see this amazing rock imagery. And then there was the context kind of added to it, right? I feel like sometimes as people who, are uninformed about that community, you see it and it's like, oh, maybe somebody was just walking by, decided to draw something, like kind of like you do as a kid with like a crayon on the wall. But like, that's not the case for a lot of these. There's like huge historical and cultural kind of background to a number of these sites. Some of them are sacred. And what's curious is I specifically remember as we were going to Poison Spider, is that as I was looking at it, there was somebody who you could tell had tried to like mimic it and make a similar mark. And it just looked nothing like it, right? Like you could tell what the fake one was immediately. And that like shows is that like, and this also takes an intense amount of skill to figure out how to make these images stay on the rock for that long and how to make them have vibrant colors and stuff like that. Cause you could be like, oh, that is a pale imitation of somebody who just visited this and decided to like, try to do it on a rock, and it's like, not that easy. Like it just takes a lot of like cultural knowledge to be able to like produce these sacred symbols and images that they use. So that's how I got connected with Bertram, and we've been staying tight ever since, just because he's been such a great resource for especially Southern Utah. We were able to have him be a part of our Paiute webinar series that we were doing over the summer. And we brought him in to talk about some of the local plants in the area. And it was magical because, I'm not a herbologist. Like, I don't know that much about plants. When I lived in Cedar City, I think red rock and the dryness is one of the things that you notice the most. Like, I was like, okay, I looked up a hike online and it had some green things that said there was flowers. Hopefully we find some things Bertram can identify, right? Because I'm not sure what it's going to be like. And we get there and he starts naming off the uses for like everything that we're seeing, which is magical just because, going through that, I see like maybe 2 different types of plants and I'm like, that's what I saw. It was green. But like all of these traditional uses and, of course, a multitude of plants that are there. And there's a lot of history of the uses and stuff like that for the local area that it takes bringing in somebody like Bertram to like preserve that knowledge and to pass it on.
Oh, for sure. And some of the most phenomenal points that I think were made earlier in the Apex event is when Bertram was just naming off all of these things that plants can do. Like I wrote it down because I was so excited, just like how sage can like help you when you have bruised skin, and how boiling green leaves can, not only be like a physical cleanse, but a spiritual cleanse. So Bertram, when you're learning about all of these like individual herbs and individual plants, was that something you just picked up over time, or was that something you really had to sit down and study?
It was being picked up over time. And then actually now in my lifetime, I'm realizing, it's just one way to help out others. But, yes, it was, learning through life. And then again, being raised by my grandmother, it was just inadvertently teaching me and understanding how to prepare or which certain plants were edible or medicinal. And so now, it's a little bit more easier to do identifying. But, nowadays, with, any type of understandings, there's books, publications, and guidebooks. So, there are simple ones to very complex ones. And, they'll go down to, the scientific terms, Latin names, on the plants as well, common names. And then now, with a lot of the indigenous and native cultures, now they are also documenting in their own way with utilizing the language for language preservation as well.
Wow.
And then still continuing with the younger generations to instill the language and understand, again, what plants are useful and how they are and how they heal and help people.
Oh, for sure. And that is so wonderful that you've continued to pass that on to the next generation, because I totally feel the vibes from you that you are such a phenomenal teacher and a phenomenal speaker. So when you're working with people to kind of preserve that knowledge about herbalism, what is that process like? Is it just more of we go out together and we observe the plants, or is it we really sit down and we talk about it?
It can go either way, however the energy, however the people feel. And then, of course, I always try to, encourage, remember things, even though, yeah, we have technology as our cell phones, our cameras, but, we have our own memory card in our brain, in our head.
I love that.
We can touch, we can feel, we can scent, we can taste it,
Yeah.
if it's the edible ones. Yeah. But anyways, that's the way, to do that, And again, with stones, with the geology, as I was sharing at the Apex, there is the stones that are with healing, and, everybody's, understanding that, each of the different varieties of stones, precious, semi-precious, they have their own healing properties as well.
Oh, for sure. And that was another phenomenal point that you made. With healing properties of stones, is that really individualistic for people? Like, how do you find what works for you? Like, I noticed you have beautiful, beautiful turquoise on, and that's, native to your area. So kind of how do you find what works for you?
Well, just like turquoise in general, coming from the state of Arizona, there's so many varieties and styles. I would just say, the turquoise was the ancestral gold, in earlier times, and still taken in as that type of value. But, again, for myself personally, turquoise is definitely helpful to have, as you traverse, when you travel, abroad. Ooh. It's just like, just like one of your protections, protection blanket, the good luck charm. But then definitely others will have, again, with the healings, like maybe pink rose quartz or crystals, right. Jade, tiger eye, they all have it. And even with the natural ones like obsidian or right. Pigments, would have that, or hematite would be other healing elements of the stones, or in different forms of pigmentation, crushing, pulverizing it also. So, yes, you have different varieties of understandings how to utilize and have, stones or the crushed portions. I mean, it's just a way of, a learning. There's nothing really, say, formal education, but now, that's coming out as well, the herbology, ethnobotany, yes. It's all in the combination of that ties in with, we all are having this rebirth, renewing, coming back out after all this, isolation or self-quarantining, right. It's just a way to come back anew, a new rebirth of realizations, contemplations, being with your families that now, it's time to go back out again. So this is just, again, one way to connect with nature or take these walks, as I say, this is the hands-on training and experience that you get, when you're out there.
Oh, for sure. And that is absolutely inspiring to be able to go out and actually have it right in front of you. So Jason, I was going to ask you, and since we're kind of talking about rocks in their areas, why did you decide specifically to get into geology? Was it walking around or seeing specific rocks?
I grew up as the kind of typical outdoorsy kid for my area.
Oh, great.
And so I was always interested in the outdoors, and I was always the kind of science nerd. So I guess it was inevitable that I would combine the two. But I didn't get into geology right away. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit how I changed my major into geology, but it was because of a movie.
No way. Which movie?
I don't know if I should advertise that.
Oh, I think you should.
I'm sure my students are listening somewhere going, really? Is that really what's happening? I started out as an engineering major, loved it. But I was home visiting family and was watching the Discovery Channel, which was pretty much the only channel that was on in my house growing up. And there was a documentary about Yellowstone National Park. Yeah. And right before that documentary, though, was a docudrama called Supervolcano. And it came out just about 20 years ago. And it was a joint effort between the BBC and the Discovery Channel. And it was to... Let's look at what would happen if Yellowstone were to erupt to its full capacity right now.
Whoa.
And so they went through the entire process of monitoring the park, monitoring the volcano, the United States Geological Survey, the National Park Service, the state and federal government. All of those interactions were accurate in the movie. I didn't know that at the time, but it was all very accurate. And after that, they interviewed the real people that the characters were based on. And there was a guy being interviewed that had the park, the big brimmed hat and the brown jacket with the
classic, badge. Yeah.
And at the bottom of the screen, it said Yellowstone Park Geologist. And that's when I learned that was a job and said, that's what I'm going to do. And so I set about the journey to figure out how to study the biggest and baddest volcanoes on the planet and make that work. So I don't get to work for the Park Service. I do work with them a lot here from SUU. We are the University of the Park, so we get to exploit that relationship.
We are.
But I do still study the biggest volcanoes, not Yellowstone specifically, but I still get to study the biggest volcanoes on the planet. So that's my journey to get here.
Oh, that is so great. I just wanted to hear the different perspectives of both the spiritual side and connection with our earth from rocks and the scientific side. So thank you both so much for sharing. I think that is the perfect intro into our next break. And this song is Geology Rocks, as we know it all does. This is KSUU Thunder 91.1.
High up on a mountain looking down upon this earth, all the treasures lying there, I wonder what they're worth. People put a price on all the elements within. All I know, geology rocks. Geology rocks. Geology rocks, rocks, rocks. Geology rocks. The mantle of the planet is replete with minerals and elements so deep. Geologists are digging underneath our very feet for diamonds and gold and silver, I'm told. We get things for burning like coal and petroleum, metals made of iron, copper, and uranium. Precious gems are sitting there like quartz and onyx stone. Sing it again. Geology rocks. Geology rocks. Geology rocks, rocks, rocks. Geology rocks. Sulfur, helium, chlorine, phosphates, zeolites, and clay. The list is just so long that we could go all day with rubies and pyrite, some jasper and chrysolite. Down a trail, don't forget to bring along a shovel and a pail. Dig up just a little of a sampling of dirt. It can't hurt. Geology rocks. Geology rocks. Geology rocks, rocks, rocks. Geology 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 rocks.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Apex Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. That was Geology Rocks, and I just think that is so perfectly fitting for what we have been discussing here today. We had a phenomenal opportunity to have science event here with the Apex Hour, and we've had so many phenomenal guests be able to come in and share their expertise and share their passions. Speaking of phenomenally passionate people, Willie, I would like to turn the time over to you to talk a little bit more about your experiences here with SUU. Willie worked here at our CDI, which is our Center for Diversity and Inclusion, which is obviously one of the best places to be on campus. So Willie, tell us a little bit about your experiences with SUU and how you came here. And
I had the blessing and privilege to come over to the Center for Diversity and Inclusion in fall 2018, and then I was able to stay for about a year before Utah Humanities dragged me away. It was heartbreaking to leave the students. But I got to work there, doing programming and working with all the student clubs. And these students put in so much work throughout the year, putting in educational events to make people more aware of different cultural things, drawing on celebrational things, and, having things like, the amazing Polynesian showcases that they do. And speaking of like these sort of events, I don't know if y'all know, but like this week is Native American Heritage Week. November is Native American Heritage Month. And they had a whole lineup of events this week. One that you can still catch if you haven't been able to check them out is tomorrow in the living room from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. They're going to be doing a showcase. And typically what their showcase has involved in the past is musical performances, dancing performances, different traditional cultural things that they take the time to like explain and break down. And if you haven't seen some of the dancing, it is phenomenal. So I haven't been able to check out what they've been doing this year, so I get to have it be a surprise. But I'm
so
super excited for that. And really, there's a big lineup of events coming later this month. Friday, November 19th, there's the annual Miss Native SUU, which if you haven't gotten to check that out, it's always fun. You get to see a lot of beautiful, just traditional performances be done. Everything from stuff ranging to spiritual to fun. So it's definitely a great opportunity to, get closer to the folks who, have been in this area for millennia, and have been holding it down through, everything that the centuries have brought us. So that's what we've been doing when I was in the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, and they're still holding it down, of course. And then I've had the joy of continuing to collaborate with them as well. So for the Humanities in the Wild, we were able to link it up with the CDI. So hopefully we'll see some of their students coming through. And actually next week, I'm going to be here with a book called The Period Passport on Conquering Period Poverty, which is like, half the population goes through menstruation and not the entire population understands what is even happening. So it's about educating people on menstruation and on periods and stuff like that. And it's going to be great. We have an author coming in, and that's going to be next Thursday the 11th from 6 to 8 p.m. in the church auditorium. And what I love about the current role is that I'm able to come back to SUU, right? I'm able to come back and bring folks like Bertram and be like, hey, you guys got to meet this guy. He's going to tell you some really fun information about the history and culture over here ancestrally. And that's one of the blessings of later this afternoon. We're going to get to go to the Petroglyph Cave and have Bertram tell us what he sees and shares the knowledge that he has from his years of doing this work, right?
Yes.
Especially when you're looking at stuff that ancient. Having precise, certainty is sometimes a little challenging, but we bring together the experts we have to talk about what culturally we can see has been maintained knowledge-wise throughout the generations, and also, yes, the impact it has on communities today. And I think that's super important for us to remember here in Cedar City. We got the Paiute Indian tribe of Utah right here in their reservation, and we have a whole bunch of history around us, which, if you start listening and being open to it, there's so many cool histories and fun stories of resilience, and also amazing cultural stories that you can take learn from. So that's what we're here to share today, and what we'll be sharing throughout when we come back. So it's been super exciting, and it's the only thing that's made leaving SUU be worth it, is being able to come back with these experiences for the students.
Oh, no, I absolutely love that. Yeah, everyone, please make sure to check out the CDI. You can find their website and, of course, their Instagram to check out all the amazing events they have going on. Speaking of coming to SUU, Jason, how did you find SUU, and what led you to come here and stay here?
My connection to SUU goes back long before I even started working here. I was a student in college back in Missouri, studying geology, finally, after watching a movie and changing my major.
I love it.
I joined the geology program as a student at a small university in Missouri, and a part of the curriculum there is a capstone 6-week field course.
Wow.
And that's common to a lot of programs around the country. And our 6-week course was in Cedar City, Utah.
Wow, no way.
So we drove from Missouri to Cedar City. I had never been to Utah. I had never heard of Cedar City. I had never heard of SUU. But we stayed in the dorms that no longer exist, actually. They've been replaced by newer dorms, thankfully, I think. But, they wouldn't put geology students in new dorms anyway. I think they didn't trust us. But we stayed on campus here for 6 weeks and studied the local geology. And then I was fortunate enough to come back many times as a teaching assistant and then as an instructor for that field course over the years. And when my time in grad school was finishing up and started looking for jobs, I saw the position at SUU and thought, hey, I actually know where that place is now.
Wow.
And I know a lot about the geology. That seems like a good spot for me. So it all worked out.
That is such a great connection. That's crazy that it's like a full circle moment. I love that. That's so great. Well, kind of speaking of like classrooms and traveling, Bertram, I know you get the opportunity to talk to so many people with what you do as a tour guide and your background in museums. What are some of your favorite parts of teaching and some of the experiences you've had doing that?
Well, I would say like when I get repeat clients, they'll be coming back out to Hopi or get invitations to go to other institutions, universities, colleges. And, when you're talking about coming back or full circle, I actually do have a nephew here that's attending here at SUU, Kayosi Kakaku. And, as we were over there at the CDI, he was there. So, he's, a part, or I think he's the president of the, Native American Student Association.
Oh, that's so great.
When I heard about NASA, and the first thing that popped into my mind was, the space program.
Right,
but
right.
Then, when I heard of the acronyms, I was like, okay, it sounds fitting for that too. So, he's the president for the Native American Student Association here at SUU. And then, as Willie was talking about the showcasing tomorrow, him and his brother, the Hopi dance group will be showcasing tomorrow evening as well to share one of the social dances of our Hopi people tomorrow evening. So, and then meeting other individuals, a Navajo lady that is south of our Hopi villages from Winslow, Arizona, and another individual from the First Mesa area from Hopi was there. So, coming in that full circle, just meeting everybody. So, it's just showing that our world is definitely small.
All roads lead back to SUU.
I've really enjoyed, how the campus looks and everything. It's my first time on the campus, actually.
Wow.
Even though being here in Cedar City before, back in June. But, it's a really nice university that you have out here.
Oh, yeah. We love it. No, that's so great. And I'm really glad we kind of get to talk a little bit about full circles because earlier, Bertram, you were making so many beautiful connections about just the connections we have with other people and kind of creating your own energy. And I would love to hear all of your perspectives about about how you can, because especially with students and especially during stressful times, it's really hard to center yourself. So any advice any of you have to students like me or any students listening about kind of grounding yourself and creating your own energy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, it's just like, how they would, generally, mention, find your own space, your happy space.
Yeah.
That's one thing to do, or, now, there's, people that are into the meditating or doing the yoga.
Oh, yeah.
Tai Chi. I mean, there is stuff out there that can help with that stress. And even when I was a college student, definitely rest, getting that sleep because you are up on those late hours, really hitting the books, staying up late, trying to cram all that information. But it's, it's just where you can find your happy space.
Yeah.
Things that make you content. Even though maybe others might give recommendations and that maybe that helps with others, but it might not help with you. So you have differences on what can get you content, what can get you relaxed, what can make you feel at ease with all of that. And just definitely not overthinking, even though you are overthinking of things or, how you're going to get by the exam or what kind of grade you're going to get, that everything comes up with what you're all overthinking. So, just, have a little limitations of not overthinking or just have the one day of that break or whatever, just to not do anything. That's just another thing. Take a break.
Take a break. I love that. Oh, that's so great.
So for me, being up here in Cedar City for the 3 days, that's my break.
Oh, that's
that
great. Give yourself a break.
Yeah.
Well, Willie, what about you? Kind of like with your connections, and you've worked a lot in the college sphere. What do you recommend for students to kind of bring it down and kind of center yourself?
Yeah, totally relate to that. This is definitely that part of the semester where everybody's stressed. I remember November and December being that time period,
Very
you got your
true.
finals coming up, big projects and stuff like that. I feel like I'm going to end up repeating a lot of what Bertram said. Rest,
That's
sleep,
great, yeah.
Make sure you're eating, drink water, move around. If you spend all your time like staring at the textbook or the computer screen. I feel like sometimes there's this myth we get in college that like the only way to succeed is to power through and do all-nighters and stuff like that.
True.
And really
yeah.
you can live your whole life that way, or you can start finding balance now and continue to live just with that balance. There's sometimes this culture of just it's like, oh, I sleep less than you sleep, and that makes me cooler. And
That's
it's like,
very
it doesn't.
true.
It makes you tired. That's all that makes you. So find your balance, and whatever that may be for you, whether it's dancing or music, or if you just gotta tune out with your video games for a while. It's important for everybody to have that space where they can process, unpack, think about the stuff that happens to you, because it's a crazy world out there. Sometimes you gotta just process.
Yes.
Definitely make sure to take time to do those things, and things will come out the way that they need to. And there's the hustling that you have to do to get ahead, but there's no point of getting ahead if when you get there you're going to be miserable. So
Oh, I love that. Oh, I 100% agree. Well, Jason, I know you've done a ton of school, so was there anything you ever did to kind of center yourself or distract yourself even?
I've always used the outdoors as my therapy.
That's great, yeah.
Yeah, going back to even as a kid, like I was saying, I was the outdoor science nerd even as a kid. So I've always used the outdoors as my safe space, my quiet place, and my opportunity to recharge. And being in southern Utah, it's a great opportunity to find a place to do that. That may not work for everyone, and it's certainly, like Bertram and Willie were saying, find what works best for you, and that certainly worked really well for me.
And that being said, there's scientific studies that being in nature actually helps for the vast majority of people.
Yeah.
Even little things like just hearing running water somewhere can make a phenomenal difference on just how calm people are, which makes sense because water means we're not going to die, right? We have a water source, we are safe, that's something, especially in a desert environment, that has a very musical, beautiful chime to it.
And don't just download an app that plays a water sound. Go out
it's not the same. It's not the same.
Find it.
Oh, no, that's so great. Well, that is such great advice, especially for me as a student to hear. So thank you all so much. Speaking of nature, we are going to go to our last song break, and this is the bird song.
Yang e do me, 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 yang yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang e do me, yang yang e do me, 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 yang yang e do me, 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 yang me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang e cho me yang me yang e cho 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 me yang
Perfect. Well, welcome back in, everyone. We are just about to the end of the Apex Hour, and I am so sad that these hours have to end. And so we will be ending with the final question that is asked every single week to all of our guests. And that question is, what is lighting your fire this week? What is turning you on? And this can be anything related to what we've been talking about, or just anything at all that's been lighting our fire for our guests. So Jason, we'll start with you. What is lighting your fire this week?
I'm going first, huh? I will say, as a member of a brand new department at SUU and as the chair of the department, I have a lot of fires going. so it's a little bit distracting and even a little bit overwhelming. And going back to what we were talking about right before that last break is finding some time to get to myself and recharge a bit. What's lighting my fire right now is that I'm running my first ever half marathon on Saturday morning.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm a little nervous. I think I'm in over my head. I'm hoping to finish, but it's through Snow Canyon State Park. So it'll be a chance for me to reset and recharge while being completely exhausted.
Yeah, and for the couch potatoes, like how much is a half marathon?
13.1 miles.
Holy cow. That's amazing. Well, that is absolutely phenomenal. I wish you the best of luck. I'm sure you'll be great.
I will need it. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, Bertram, what is lighting your fire this week?
Oh, I just been enjoying to come out here again to Cedar City. I been enjoying to share, what happened today at the Apex and the different, it wasn't just ethnobotany, what the plants, but just little tidbits of other information that I shared with everybody. Yeah. The reaction of how some of the students, came up to me and inquired some more questions. I guess the main thing that would be lighting my fire is this week is having this break time to be out here in Cedar City, and then just, to have my friend along with me as well to come up and visit this area, this part of Utah.
Oh, yeah. I am so glad you have a break and you get to be with us. That is such a treat for us. So thank you so much. Awesome. Well, what is lighting your fire this week?
I have a tia visiting me from California, my tia Paz, and she's bringing all her energy and her arepas and her cooking skills. And it's been a happy time over at the Paloma household. We've had a lot of really good cooking and a lot of aunties just getting down and telling stories. So I think that's what's kind of burning my fire this week, along with a lot of other things. Like just a couple of minutes ago, I guess it was last hour, Bertram was meeting family members in the CDI, and that's something that I hadn't planned on. I was yeah, we can meet some students, but I didn't know there was going to be blood ties and stuff like that. So there's been a lot of things to choose from, but I think my tia takes the cream.
Oh, yeah. Well, she has to. I mean, come on. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time and sharing your insights about our land. And thank you all so much for tuning into the Apex Hour. And we will see you next week.
Thanks so much for listening to the Apex Hour here on KSUU Thunder 91.1. Come find us again next Thursday at 3 p.m. for more conversations with the visiting guests at Southern Utah University and new music to discover for your next playlist. And in the meantime, we would love to see you at our events on campus. To find out more, check out suu.edu/apex. Until next week, this is Lynn Vartan saying goodbye from the Apex Hour here on Thunder 91.1.